Mark Jones. How are you? It's January 12th.
Happy January 12th. How are you? Happy
No, let's
Monday.
go. Year is starting off fast. And one of the questions I always try to answer in January is if you understand the bell curve of real estate, January typically, historically, it's kind of been one of the slower months of the 12-month calendar year. And it usually builds up until about March. And then we stay pretty hot from March till about June, July. And then there's a little tapering off that happens in third and fourth quarter. However, one of the questions I'm trying to answer, and we're going to inspect in the data, is some years, Mark, it takes until March for the market to really get going. And other
Right,
years, it comes out the gate just flying high. And
right.
my
Yeah, I think a lot
sus
of it depends on what happens in November and December the year before.
Yeah. So I want us to kind of keep that perspective. Like, do we believe it's starting fast or do we believe it's going to be a little bit slower build up? But let's inspect and look at the numbers here.
Take a look.
All right. So, boop, 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 boop. Get up here to Fulton County. All right. So, active status changes 558. So obviously, new listings coming on the market, right? And we had
Hmm.
a little bit of a lull at the end of December,
Sure.
296, 458, but we're building, right? Like we had 536 the first week of the month, and now
Hmm.
we're 558. So not too drastic, but we're not at pace yet. Does that make sense? Like we were putting 700, 900 listings on the market back in October, November. So we're not totally at pace of new listings coming on yet, right?
Hmm.
But we had 96 go under contract the second week of January.
Hmm.
And what do I think pace is for Fulton County? I mean, there certainly was some weeks back here where we were in the 120 range. There was a week in November we were in the 140 range. And then we slowed down in December and we started the week or the year with 49, but that's not a full week because half the people were nursing New Year's Eve for a couple days. But 96 is certainly a building number. And my suspicion is this week we're going to be back in the 120s. And I think we're starting fast. If I'm just looking at Fulton County, now there's 130 or 163 pending in the MLS right now. Fulton County normally is in the 200 range. So we're building back up that
Hmm.
pending inventory, but there are 137 properties that closed out in the last 7 days.
Hmm.
To your point, Mark, those were contracts written in December, right?
Right.
But if you look down here, November, they were closing 300-ish a month. So we're not back there yet.
Right.
But it certainly feels like we're building. And I think where our agents are going to feel it is how many people walked into your open house this weekend? The listings you have on the market, are you noticing more showings? And I want you to think about that. And I'm going to ask you here in a minute when we get through the three counties. But if I jump down to DeKalb, 559 is a really healthy number of new listings coming on the market in DeKalb County. It's not a peak, but for a second week of December, that's really good. And then 95 going under contract in the first last 7 days is a smashing number for DeKalb County. So that tells me like bam, they got hit with a lot of properties going under contract in the last 7 days. There's 27 coming soon. So there's a lot of stuff coming. They're at 163 pending. Uh, we only have a couple of weeks where we were at that level, if not higher, in DeKalb County, all of third and fourth quarter. And then you've got still 108 expired, 118 withdrawn. So there's still a lot of listings coming off the market. But they had 137 close out. Obviously, the 271 was the end of year number. So they're not totally back at pace yet on closings, which I feel is probably indicative of the lower under contract numbers that we saw in December, but they look like they're coming out the gates pretty fast in under contracts. If I look at Cobb County, 336 active status changes. They certainly had 500, 600 was kind of bigger months or bigger weeks for them. So they're not back to pace yet. They had 61 go under contract. I think Cobb County, anywhere from 80 to 100 is probably at pace, if you will. So 61's building from 45, but they're not at pace. So DeKalb was smashing under contract. Fulton and Cobb were better than what they're building, but they're not back yet. But 101 pending is starting to build out. They had 79 close out in the last 7 days. Certainly these bigger numbers previously, and they had a huge number at the end of the year at 291. What do you think? If you're answering the question, are we starting fast or slow? What do you think, Mr. Jones?
I feel like we're definitely starting a little faster than normal. I think we're seeing some pent up uh, demand and supply coming to fruition now. The people who sellers maybe waited over the holidays, didn't get anything, and now they're getting offers and they're getting reasonable about accepting those offers. So I think like we're seeing that activity picking up, and buyers I think are taking advantage of the fact that rates are actually down again.
Yeah. And obviously that's a hot topic. We're going to get there, right? But just quickly, poll the audience here. What are y'all feeling in the marketplace? Are you getting more showings on your listings? Are you getting more traffic in your open houses? Are more leads coming? What's happening out there in the marketplace?
I think definitely showings are going up. Interest is there. What I'm seeing is that buyers are still slow to make an offer. And so I'm still seeing the same buyer come to the same house, maybe once, twice, three times before pulling the trigger. And so there's optimism, but yet still a little bit of trepidation from the buyers to make an offer.
Okay. I'm looking in the chat.
I
More
showed 18
showing.
homes this weekend and we're making two offers for two different clients, so that's pretty good sign for me. I haven't showed 18 homes in one weekend and I can't tell you how long.
Oh,
Nice
so you're,
job.
you're tired this morning, Jeff?
No, I'll do it all day long to write two offers.
Anybody else? I'm seeing in the chat more showings, but no offers. Yes, slow to pull the trigger. I had more showings for sure. Uh, JD said things are going under contract, more offers. Keith said anecdotally, yes, tons of activity last week and over the weekend. One under contract last week and a condo shown over the weekend. Increased showing activity. I believe the feeling is that the market is starting pretty fast in 2026.
Mhm.
And if you're on this call listening to this, Mark, how should they react to this information? What would you, if you were listening and you're an agent, what would you do with this information?
I mean, I feel like one, I'd be getting in touch with any buyers that were on the fence last year, like have revisiting every buyer conversation you've had in the past 12 months and making sure that they're looking at their qualification level based on what rates are today, telling them that there's a lot of opportunity out there. And with sellers, explain to them that things are picking up. So give them a little bit of hope, but also let them know that it's still more important than ever that they price their property right.
Yeah. All right. If you were living under a rock last week, there were a lot of political statements made and a lot of movement that happened in the mortgage rate world. And if you weren't aware, the rates actually, for a hot minute, went below 6% last week. So you've heard us talk on here about how we believe rates are going to be stubborn in 2026 and probably hang out between 6% and six and a quarter. Now, that doesn't mean there's not going to be moments where it drops below six or goes above six and a quarter. But by and large, I think the expectation is rates will land somewhere between six and six and a quarter for most of 2026. Having said that, Mark, I don't know how many times we've come on these calls and I've got my foot in my mouth from something we said before,
Mhm.
but the truth is that's what most economists are predicting, so much that the rate today is 6.06%. And it's up a little bit because we did get into the 5.9-ish range on Thursday last week and then finished the week at 6.06. But why? So let's unpack this a little bit. So, first thing that happened last week, uh, Trump came out and made a statement that said Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac are planning on taking a lot of their cash reserves to the tune of $200 billion and putting it into the bond market or putting it into the treasury market, right? And is that a good or a bad thing? Well, the market reacted positively to that, meaning rates came down and it won't be as big as the Federal Reserves, right? Like so, it's saying although 200 billion sounds like a lot of money, the impact and longevity of them putting money into bond purchases on mortgage rates won't be as big as the Federal Reserve. So why is this a big deal? When there's money going into federal funds, whether it's a yield, treasury, or the bond market, that puts stability into the mindset of the Fed so that they want to bring rates down. Now, the other thing I thought about in this article, Mark, and then if you have any comments, is they haven't done anything yet. They
Right.
just made a statement and the market reacted.
Hmm.
That's how powerful a political statement can affect the market, even without anything happening. And there's a couple other statements that were made, and we'll get to it. But anything about this bond promise, it was headline news last week, and I think it's what created the mortgage opportunity of what happened at the end of last week. Yet nothing's really happened yet. And Rick, you're on here. Thoughts? Mark, I don't care anybody.
It's about stability and confidence in the future. And ultimately, they're trying to drive consumer confidence as well as corporate confidence to keep expanding and not retracting, which is clearly a direct correlative to the unemployment rates. So it's amazing how we all do respond to the narrative. And the good news is the narrative is optimistic. And I think that's great for our industry and for consumers as a whole.
Yeah. And because Trump isn't having a direct impact on Powell's policies, he's throwing these statements out there to see what he can do to get the economy in a stronger, more forward-moving position so that the numbers come up.
Yeah. And there's an article on Housing Wire which speaks to the same thing that just says mortgage rates drop below 6% following his announcement, right? And you can read through these articles. We don't need to unpack them any deeper than what we just did. But the bottom line is there is certainly political pressure to bring mortgage rates down. We've been saying that for a while. Regardless of what side of the fence you're on, I think in real estate, lower mortgage rates is a positive for our industry. So we celebrate the lower mortgage rates, right? The
And I
other
think
thing,
this is just a good opportunity too for agents to talk to their buyers and say, if you're not already talking to a lender, you can't take advantage of rates when they dip down like that because you haven't even started the process. Like you have to be in the market and finding a property to be able to jump on it and lock in at a low rate.
there you go.
Yeah, and one more thing, Brett. It's interesting that I looked up. I took that because in the article it says 200 billion is really a drop in the bucket relative to the total
Yeah.
debt. So even though the narrative is optimistic and everyone reacted positively, the reality is it's not in their world, not a lot of money. And I researched where are mortgage-backed securities held, and the Federal Reserve currently has 2.14 trillion. Banks are holding 3 trillion in mortgage-backed securities. Foreign buyers are holding 1.33 trillion as of June of last year, and then Fannie and Freddie 60 billion. So the little player, and I think the assumption is they hold a tremendous percentage, and They actually, relative to the grand scheme, they don't.
Mhm.
So it's a big world of money.
So the other thing that happened last week is they got December job data. So the month of December saw job creation in the economy, and that also supports the lower mortgage rate. So what would I tell you about this? You got to understand there's a couple big key things that the Federal Reserve or monetary policy monitors. Obviously, inflation was the big one over the previous couple of years, but the job data is one of the factors that they look at when they're formulating monetary policy. So if there's job creations, that says that the employers feel optimistic about the future and are expanding. If there's job loss, it means that the employers don't feel optimistic about the future and are concerned about the economy. It doesn't necessarily mean that when jobs are created, mortgage rates go down. It's just one of the factors in the giant chess puzzle that they look at. However, it does speak a little bit to the economy looks to be better this year. The market looks to be better this year. People are putting the foot on the gas pedal going into 2026, including people adding jobs. And, just simply in real estate, it takes good credit, money to put down, and a job to buy real estate for most people. So that's always a good factor when there's job creation. And I actually believe, I don't have the data on it, but I think we get more than our unfair share in Metro Atlanta. We are a job market hub. And while that's a national number, percentage wise, we probably outperform most metro markets in Metro Atlanta in terms of employment. So that's a good thing. The third big announcement was this one. And let's unpack this a little bit. You probably saw it all over social media. I got quite a few texts from you guys. And I always cringe when somebody sends me something that starts out with Trump said this, because I don't know how to respond appropriately. But the reality is, he made a statement. Nothing's happened, there's no action. He made a statement that said he wants to ban large institutional investors from buying investment real estate. And what would this mean for the housing market? If you dive into these articles, um, you got to realize a couple things. One is in second quarter 2025, which is the last data we have, a third of the single family homes were bought by investors. Now, that doesn't mean that a third were bought by large institutional investors. It just says a third were bought by investors. But if you dive down deeper into this article on the Atlanta Business Chronicle, let me find it. It's deeper in here somewhere. And now I lost it. Well, it said it's 87% somewhere.
Right there at the bottom,
Where?
right there,
Where?
3 paragraphs up.
Whoa, stop. 87% of single family homes. Is that what you're looking for?
Yeah.
It's lower. Go down 3 paragraphs.
There.
Right there. Most of the investors buying properties are relatively
here we go.
smaller operations with 87% of single family homes owned by investors with 1 to 5.
So thank you for that. So 87% of the investment bought real estate was owned by somebody like you and I buying a rent house. Somebody that owns between 1 to 5 properties. So what that also says is 13% were bought by people that own more than 5 properties. Now, I own more than five rental properties, so I guess I'm in that 13%, but I don't consider myself a large institutional investor like a BlackRock or somebody like that that owns thousands, right? But it just goes to show we're really not talking about a giant percentage of the market. I
Brett,
agree
that's
that,
national though.
yeah,
That's
I'm going
national
there.
though. What would you say about Atlanta?
I just looked it up. It says
Yeah.
25 to 30. So 27% is the latest estimate that are owned by institutional large. Let's see here. Institutional investors own a significant portion. 25 to 30% is the best estimate I could come up with.
And
And
those numbers though, are talking about the total inventory. When they talk about how many are being bought month to month, I would say it's a larger percentage than what the total inventory percentage is.
no, I think these percentages here are talking about what's being bought, and what Rick's quoting is what's owned.
Correct.
Yeah, and here's what I would say is you realize there's certain geographic pockets that institutional investors have more market share in than others, which are certainly rental property markets, right? I know Paulding County is a giant institutional owned investor county,
Mhm.
for instance. But what's the motivation behind this statement? It's twofold. One is they want to make movements or movement into helping with affordability. So a lot of the things they're doing is to try to improve affordability in America. So if they ban the institutional investors, they believe it will help with affordability and what we all sell the American dream, right? Like the ability to own a home. The other thing is there's a concern around price fixing or price raising the price of homes in certain markets. So you realize, like, if I'm a builder and I develop a new construction neighborhood, I kind of control the pricing of that neighborhood, and everybody kind of knows that builders raise prices strategically as they develop out a neighborhood. So if there was a geographic area that institutional investors owned a large enough percentage of the real estate, they could price appreciate that area. However, it's probably more likely that it happens in rental rates, not actual home values. And I do believe they push on the rental rates in certain areas, but I don't know that this whole thing about banning institutional investors really translates to changing our world that much. I mean, tell me if you believe differently, but I think it's kind of a click, a media thing. It's probably very political, and but I think people by and large would be excited about that because whether it's actual true or not, it feels like the perception is they're stealing the American dream from a lot of people.
Well, 70% are still owner occupied. And
Yeah.
at the same time, to your point, the micro market data is different county to county, city to city, street to street. And so it goes back to me when I read all of this, I think, you know what? We live in a capitalistic world where if you want to buy, rent, I mean, they've got motivation to, I would think, uphold values and maintain a certain decorum of, I guess quality to be able to either resell it later or maintain higher rents. I guess the risk is if they became apathetic or their flavor went somewhere else and they flooded the market, could that short term affect certain markets? I mean, you're right. Paulding was like 70. I looked up the data in Henry County's 68%. They literally do, to some degree, control the single family rental rates in terms of, I mean, supply and demand still reigns supreme, but they've got who's competing with them? They're competing with themselves to some degree.
Yeah.
So all that said is it's interesting information. And I think again, as a real estate professional and helping someone make an owner occupied purchase or an investor purchase, this is incredible information as an expert to bring to the conversation and make sure you give quality consulting.
And you're going to get asked about it.
Yeah.
Right.
Clients will ask you.
It's in the news. Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
Well, and when you do the math out, like we're literally talking about less than 1% nationally of the housing market. So again, perspective is everything.
Yeah, and this same conversation, different news. This is Housing Wire's article on it. Just to what you're saying, Mark, large institutions account for only a small fraction of investor-owned housing. You can download these and read into it. Make sure you're up to speed on it. I want to hit a couple other things real quick. So CoStar, if you're not aware, is the commercial MLS. They got a lot of money. And years ago, They made a business decision and bought a website called apartments.com. And if you've watched TV in the last 5, 7 years, you probably saw a ton of apartments.com advertisement. And I believe CoStar got a smashing return on investment from all of that. So then they made a play a few years back and doubled down on homes.com. And there's a lot of television and media spend on driving traffic to homes.com. And they've done a good job of driving traffic to homes.com. However, let's unpack this a little bit. I believe the real estate industry thought or wished that homes.com would have evolved into being an aggregator, just like Zillow or realtor.com, but it's not. What homes.com is a your listing, your lead premium placement marketing vehicle. If you're a listing agent, you can get premium placement on homes.com that drives more leads back to you. And so a couple years ago, I think they were like on stage at family reunion. They made a big push. I know a lot of our agents signed up for it. And I got very mixed reviews from the success of them spending that money. Having said that, I've gotten more recent conversations with agents that said they're actually getting some good leads off their listings from the premium placement on homes.com. I don't have data or anything, but I want you to know it's not an aggregator. It's more of a premium listing tool that will drive leads back to you. And if I'm looking at this article and they're talking about cutting spending on homes.com, my suspicion is they're not getting the same results that they got with apartments.com off of homes.com. So if you ask me, are you going to see a homes.com Super Bowl commercial? To be determined, but probably not going forward. I don't know. Does anybody on here have homes.com premium placement? Are you getting any success out of it?
I've been on their platform for about 60 days. I've been pleased with it so far. Um, Part of the big sort of appeal is they do this retargeting with their ad spending on literally hundreds of other platforms, CNBC.com, ESPN.com, et cetera, where people who have searched for for something that somewhat matches the profile of your listing will get fed ads for your listing on all these other sites. So the decrease of 35% in their spending, I'm curious to learn more. Is that their ad spending where they're buying all these pay-per-click ads on all these hundreds of other websites, or is it like their media spending, like Super Bowl ads and or just TV commercials? They had some pretty ridiculous helicopter ads for homes.com that I think was just brand uh, advertising. But at any rate, so far, I'm pleased with it. It is your listing, your lead, even if you're not a member, even if you're not paying, go on homes.com, search for a listing. Anybody will see your name and number on it. If you're a paid member, it has your picture and like stats on how many how homes you've sold in the past 2 years, as well as how many you've sold in that neighborhood. And so far, I'm pleased with it. Also, it's about a third the cost of what it was 2 years ago.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm hearing some recent good stuff, but I've also heard a lot of older bad stuff. So I'm not advocating either direction. All I'm saying is make sure you understand it, one, and two, it's certainly a force in our industry to some level. So pay attention. All right, last thing. Every week we hand you AI scripts for social media reels and an email template with fresh content based on the data and the articles we bring to this call every week. And this morning, I went and created a reel. It took me 5 minutes from the script you have. And it's this simple, guys. You just turn the camera around and read the script. Mortgage rates just dipped into the high fives, and most buyers didn't even notice. Today, the average 30-year fix around 6.06%, but recent bond and jobs data briefly pushed rates lower. This is how rate cycles actually work. Short windows open before the headlines feel calm. Smart buyers aren't waiting for a magic number. They're locking in payments they can afford and using credits, buy downs, and negotiation power while inventory is still reasonable. DM buy, and I'll send you a simple 3-step to buy smart in today's market. I literally just wanted to model what we're trying to get you guys to do here. If we can hand you scripts that are 3 social media reels for the week, and you do one on Monday, one on Wednesday, one on Thursday, Friday, and just take this playbook, guys. I'm telling you, it's not that hard. That's your industry update for the second week of January, 2026.
Yeah. I'd like to add one last thing though. What you did 3 things. One, you personalized the information in video form, and it's reasonably homegrown, but still professional. The second thing you did is provided value and intrigue or information. And the third thing is you had a call to action. You didn't just provide information and hang up. Call me for these 3 steps. Call me for, reach out. Happy to send you this resource. That's the critical part that extends the conversation and takes it down to the granular personal level. So awesome job, Brett. I'd hire you.
Yeah. There you go. I'm just trying to model what we're trying to get all of you guys lined up to do, guys.
And I appreciate you guys turning on your cameras. Beautiful faces out there. Love you guys.
Yeah, it's
Love
good
you
to see
guys.
everyone.
Awesome.
one.
Have a wonderful week.